to, before I start, thank our program committee. You know, it's easy to write a little talk and get up here and talk to you and enjoy myself. But you know what they do? They pick the hymns that go with the topics. They pick the responsive readings. They get it all organized. They print the program bulletins, you know. This is a really good group. We are so lucky to have them working for us. Now, shuffle through all the stuff up here. Don't shuffle too much. Okay, some of it's mine and some of it's not. Okay, it is. Okay, here we go. I chose this topic quite a long time ago, actually, because I was staring into a diamond on my ring and thinking, wow, you know, basically I was looking at it and saying, I should really clean this ring because it doesn't sparkle like I like it to do, because some of the facets on the ring maybe had a little bread dough on them or something, you know. So facets came to my mind, and I thought, you know, everything is facets. Many faces, many different aspects. Whatever you're thinking about, it has different ways of looking at it. Different faces that we call facets. Each is pointed in a slightly different orientation to a light beam passing through it, and each facet of a crystal or a diamond or a person receives that light from a different angle, which is why a faceted stone casts rainbows when it's struck by light. Now, you all know I'm a former science teacher, and I could give you an hour-long lecture about light and light reflection and light refraction and different wavelengths of light. But I'm not going to, you're lucky. And there's not going to be any test. Nowadays, we get our information from Mr. Google if we really want to find something out. I must tell you one of the things that started me thinking about this topic. A couple months ago, we had a dinner party at our home in Nebraska. And one family brought along 4 grandchildren. They were city kids, and they just loved the farm. They ran around, and they just had such a good time. One little kid, and I think he was 4, was watching me because I'm doing all my kitchen stuff, you know. And it's getting to be late afternoon, and the afternoon sun is coming through the kitchen window. And it happened to pass through a little cut glass figure that was on the windowsill. And the little boy watching me said, "You are just covered in rainbows." I said to myself, I love 4-year-old kids. What an observation from a little kid. The cut glass vase on the windowsill was catching the late afternoon sun and making rainbows all over the kitchen. And then it started me thinking about how we see one another. So many facets reflecting so many different light effects. I need some ambulatory volunteers. Jill. I was at a garage sale and I found this bag of faceted acrylic stones. To keep, yes. Never, you can't say I never gave you anything, right? But every time you look at it, look at the facets on it. If it were enough sun in here, you could make rainbows with those. several ways a stone can become faceted. The faceted acrylic gems that you have in your hands are cast in molds so that they come out of the molds with many sides. Sometimes stones are cut, particularly crystals are cut into faceted shapes so that the facets reflect and refract the light in a rainbow of colors. Instead of a science lesson, I'd like to talk to you today about the fact that we are all like the diamonds. We have many facets. Some facets are clearly seen. I have white hair. She has blue eyes. He is tall, and so on. But many facets are hidden, or at least unseen. Like, she's a good cook. She's a good musician. He's an artist. Another facet that remains unseen could be like, her back is killing her. He's anxious to leave because he wants to get to the game. She has a beautiful grandchild. He is thinking of leaving his job. She is worried about a possible illness. So many things we can't know by looking at the outside of a person. Like gemstones, our facets are molded or carved in many ways that just by looking at us are not evident. One time I was in China, and the tour guide showed us a factory where people were cutting jade. They held the piece of jade to a grinding wheel that had diamond dust on it. And as the wheel spun, the jade was carved in beautiful and intricate facets, because the artisan knew just what angle to apply and what pressure. We are influenced by every place and every person that touched our lives in the past. Pain and unhappiness molds or carves its place in our personality, just as happiness and joy do. Think about the many sides of your own personality. What influence carved your facets? What side do you want the world to see? What is your own personal favorite side of yourself? Sometimes people do things that surprise us. They might start singing when we never knew that they could sing. And before we are surprised and they say, oh, I used to sing a lot, or I was in a choir before. Sometimes people show a side of their personality that is new to us, or they tell us a story of their life that we never heard before. They're showing us a facet that bends our knowing of them like the facets on a crystal bend the light. Some facets we deliberately cover up so that they remain unseen. We call them dark secrets. We all have them. Some we only reveal to our closest friends. Of course, there are some people that are more open than others, and some we might wish would be less open. In our busy world where we spend very little time getting to truly know people, sometimes we don't want to let people get too close to us. And sometimes we just forget to shut up and listen. Sometimes people's painful past has molded them in ways that still shape their personalities. How can we do a better job of seeing more sides of people and being a bit slower to judge them? Better yet, how can we help them be covered by rainbows? Perhaps a simple way would be to try to pay attention. We need to become good listeners as well as good talkers. We need to look for and appreciate all the facets of our friends and acquaintances for their own sake as well as for ours. We have so very much to learn from one another. When I was a teacher, I used to say that people, meaning students, could not learn if they're doing all the talking. Because like in a single railroad track, our brains can only handle trains going in one direction at any one time. If you're talking, you can't be listening. Our fellowship has many facets. Some might see the Unitarian Fellowship of Houston as a social gathering, a place to enjoy friendships and food and make new friends. I think this is valid facet of a faith-based group. Finding warmth, acceptance, and even a few laughs keeps us coming back. Others might criticize people who show up on Sundays solely for the sake of social fellowship. They may feel that spirituality should be the main facet of a religious organization. To me, that is like saying that a diamond should only reflect blue light. All the other wavelengths should be ignored. For some, the comfort of being part of a larger group is the most important part of a social organization. In times of stress, in times of loss, in times of anxiety, to have a circle of friends for the support is a valuable and valid facet of a church organization. Take a look at your diamond. Of course, I know it's just acrylic. If this represented our society, you would have to admit that it has many facets, many different angles that affect each of us. Government is one facet. When we approach the booth at the polls, all the influences that have carved our lives will affect how we mark our ballots. Your facets are not the same as mine, and ours are different from other people's. Every aspect of our lives has that many more facets, and each is different according to the angle from which you are viewing it. Like in the song that Julie sang, if you look at clouds from both ways, they look different. You really don't know a whole cloud just by glancing up at the sky. We recently went to a celebration of life for John's sister Susan. As different people took the microphone to talk about their connections and their memories of Susan, I kept thinking, I didn't know that. Although I knew her for 63 years, there was much about Susan that I never knew, and I wish I had known. The little town near our farm in Nebraska is named Brock. Brock is a crumbling, little old town, the population gradually diminishing until the cows take over, and the soybean fields. The people, though, are all upset and awash with protest signs because a large solar energy firm proposes to build a huge solar farm just outside the town. Many people have signs in their yards saying that farmland is for growing food, not for solar energy. First of all, it's the very first time I've seen the town of Brock united in anything. Second of all, The people are seeing the production of so-called clean energy from only one point of view. Not in my backyard. They have no hard information on the subject, but rumors have spread that the solar panels will ruin the soil forever, and that big energy companies will take over and they will lose their right to control their land. Half-truths, lies, propaganda can have a hugely distorting effect upon any facet. We must be careful to look for the real facts and not just listen. Okay, page 6 is missing. And not just listen to the propaganda. But I was proud of the town for coming together. The last part, though, I was going to tell you about something that happened last week in Brock. Here we've had a drought. Up there we've also had a very bad drought. Starting like in August, there was no rain. Everything dry as a bone. Now the crops were well underway and the soil moisture was apparently high enough that they got a decent harvest anyway. But there were radio broadcasts, TV banners going across the screen saying, be very careful because wildfires, no outdoor burning, put out your cigarette before you toss, all this kind of thing. Be careful about fires. And sure enough, last week a fire started, and where it started was on the land that is owned by the man who farms our land. And the winds that day were 30 to 50 mile per hour winds. And the fire just took off and started roaring across the countryside. They evacuated Brock. They got the people all out of there, took them to a gym so they'd be safe. Our farm is 2 miles west of Brock, so fortunately the wind was coming such that the fire would not be driven onto our land. But there are homes and farmsteads in the path of this fire. And so people were really frightened and worried. This is the first time in any of our memory that this has happened there. But those people showed a facet. The farmers hitched up their disc equipment to their tractors and they drove to the fire. And now this takes a lot of guts, to drive a gasoline engine into a fire, right? They plowed a huge fire break. And all the local volunteer fire departments came with pumper trucks and pumped water on it. So that even though Mother Nature was doing her best, the Brock residents won. They got the fire out. No farmsteads were burned, no livestock were lost, no people were damaged. So, a facet of this community that I never dreamed was there. The strength of the people working together for a common cause. Anytime you have a group of people, if they unite, so that they're not all disparate facets, if they unite and work together, they can produce an incredible, successful outcome. All right. Now, I'm not sure there was anything else on page 6 anyway. In conclusion, appreciate every side of every person and look for every side of every situation, because there's always more stuff than you can see at first glance. Okay, you can keep your gems if you want them. If you